right, and hello everybody. This is Bill Peschel.
And I'm Teresa Peschel, his beloved wife, despite the fact that I just broke his prized Cerebus statue that he's had intact for over 40 years. And I am sorry.
I thought we were going to talk about this. This is what happens when you're putting on a live broadcast.
Things happen.
Things happen shortly before. It's been a interesting morning, I think, and that was just like the last thing. So
you should go. In fact, go get the Cerberus statue and get Kill Like Christie because they're related.
What you mean?
The book cover, yes, the book cover. The book cover and Kill Like Christie, they are related.
Oh, okay. Well, here, hold on to that.
Okay.
I get this. Yes.
So this is Bill's prized Cerberus statue from some obscure live, no, sorry, not live, indie
comic from the 80s, signed by Dave Sim himself at Philadelphia. And yes, I had it behind me here, and my wife was hurrying, putting back a book, which she shouldn't have been looking at in the first place, and then... and I had
the
words.
Magic of super glue will fix this problem. But anyway, the reason why I was moving a book on the shelf at the last minute before the live stream is because we have been talking about Bill's book, Kill Like Christie and Solve Like Sherlock, which he is slaving away over, where you baffle your readers using tropes from the golden age of mystery. And of course, who is more golden than Agatha Christie? And I wanted to say Bill Peschel, but it's not right. Sherlock Holmes, right? Sherlock Holmes.
Sherlock.
Anyway, we have been we're going to be watching the 4 Lord Edgware Dies, the 4 versions of it. And so we were talking about tropes that Agatha Christie uses. And there is a rather obscure trope that shows up here in Lord Edgware Dies, and it is religion as a motivation for murder. And that doesn't come up very often. And yes, thank you for showing the spoiler warning, because by God, we've got to have one. But it doesn't come up often that religion is a motivator, but it does show up sometimes in Agatha Christie stories. And here in Lord Edgware Dies, and this particular version is really, really bad about this, because I had to reread my review because we saw this like 5 years ago, and it was a long time, and I had totally forgotten everything.
Yeah.
But you don't know why, if Jane Wilkinson, that's Lady Edgware, and you want to bring up a picture of her peroxide blonde beauty, she is she wants to divorce her Lord Edgware and move up the food chain and marry the Duke of Merton, who is much higher up the food chain than Lord Edgware, and apparently much wealthier, even though he also looks like a sour, dried up old man. Jane can get a divorce from Lord Edgware, but the Duke of Merton can't marry her, even if she is a gay divorcee. And the reason why, and this is totally not brought out in this particular film version, but it is brought out in the novel, the Duke of Merton is a stalwart defender of the Catholic faith. And that means he can marry a merry widow, but he can't marry a gay divorcee. And so Jane Wilkinson, Lady Edgware, has to murder her husband.
Now, it may be also that this is something that was commonly known then, because when you saw that little clip of Hastings and Poirot going into Merton's house, Hastings picks up books and talks about the fact that he is a defender of the faith.
I didn't even catch that. But yeah. Yes, this is actually an important detail for why Lady Edgware had to have her husband dead. She could be a merry widow, but she couldn't be a gay divorcee, because one was acceptable and the other was not. And the reason why I broke the Cerberus statue is because I remembered that there were at least 2 other instances in which someone wouldn't give a divorce because they were Catholic, and that was in the 450 from Paddington. The doctor couldn't divorce his wife because she was Catholic, and she refused. She refused to give a divorce. And I am like 95% positive that this is also true in
Triangle
at Rhodes, that there is a woman there who, and she ends up, I can't remember the particulars, but she and her lover, they can't marry because her husband is Catholic and won't give her a divorce. And I cannot quite remember the details, but I am sure of it. And there probably may be other instances in Agatha Christie's oeuvre where being Catholic says you can't get a divorce, so the only divorce you can get is a lead divorce, or in this case, a divorce by corn knife. And and that's a whole nother ball of wax.
We'll get into that.
But anyway, this is the very first film version of Lord Edgware Dies. It is actually the third film as Hercule Poirot that Austin Trevor made. He made first Alibi, which was the some hacks playwright rewrote Agatha Christie's Murder of Roger Ackroyd as Alibi. He starred in that, and that film is lost. And then he starts in his second Hercule Poirot outing, and I don't know if you can even find
I don't think there was even an image from it.
Yeah, images.
Black Coffee.
Yeah, he made Black Coffee, the stage play. This is the only English language version of Black Coffee that, to our knowledge, has ever been filmed. And it is, of course, totally lost. And hello, Julia Walton. Glad you could join us. But yes, it is. Black Coffee is totally lost. And so this is the only version we have to judge Austin Trevor's performance as Hercule Poirot. And when you bring him up on screen, we use this as an illustration in when I do the speaking engagement, 13 Poirots and 7 Miss Marples. And you look at that image and you decide who is Poirot, the tall, skinny guy without the tall, skinny guy who doesn't have a mustache, or is it the short, rotund guy with the mustache? And it's the other way around. And this is exactly what drove Agatha absolutely berserk about presentations of Hercule Poirot, because that was not Hercule Poirot. And I really believe after she saw Black Coffee on stage with Francis Sullivan, that she said, we're not putting Poirot in any more stage presentations because I am not suffering through this again. I can write the dialogue and I still get some hack actor who mangles it. And she couldn't do anything about film presentations of Poirot using the novels, but she could take him off the stage, and she did.
Mm-hmm.
And the Austin Trevor presentation, it shows you right from the beginning in 1932, it just drove her crazy. It just drove her absolutely crazy. And I think you have a little film clip, Bill, in which we can hear Austin Trevor's terrible Belgian accent, I should say. And he doesn't even correct Jane
Poirot, I believe.
She says,
At your service, Lady Edgware.
Oh, you Frenchmen are so cute. I just love your Parisian manners.
And our English policeman, I hope.
Oh, why, yes.
My friend Captain Hastings.
How do you do?
How do you do?
Mr. Poirot, I want to consult you.
Certainly, madame. At what hour shall I call on you tomorrow?
Oh, tomorrow means nothing in my life. Only the present counts. Why not now?
By all means, if you wish. We should be quite undisturbed in there.
So yes, as you could see, she calls him a Frenchman, loves his French manners. Hello, David. Good to see you again. And he doesn't correct her. Now,
yeah, he doesn't correct her. I mean, David Suchet in all of his films never misses an opportunity to say, I am Belgian. Peter Ustinov never misses an opportunity to say, I am Belgian. and I mean, they all never miss an opportunity to say, I am Belgian. But Austin Trevor's script did not let him do that. And even though he had played Poirot 3 times, the script did not let him say, and he didn't ad lib, or if he did, it didn't make it on camera, I am Belgian, not French.
Yeah. Now, this happens in Alibi, and in Mark Aldridge's book, Agatha Christie on Screen, they talk about it. Apparently, it showed up at the time. You had reviewers saying, he's Belgian, not French. And one of them actually ran into Austin on the street and asked him about it. And he said, well, it's just the way the script is written, and I do this script the way it's written. And they probably hired me because I played a Frenchman in a previous movie.
Oh, God, save us. God,
and this is what Agatha had to deal with.
Yeah, this is what she had to deal with. So we first saw this film, oh my God, it must have been
over 5 years ago.
Yeah, over 5 years ago, because it was in July of I think it might have been in July of 2020 when I first started bringing home the movie. So we would have seen this in 2021. And so it has been a really long time since we last saw it. And it was long enough ago that we weren't even working hard at making sure that we got the cast exactly correct, doing the heavy duty research to find which obscure actor played which obscure role on screen. And there were a lot of things I had forgotten about this movie. I had forgotten that it opens with Carlotta Adams singing up a storm as she mimics Jane Wilkinson. And this is, of course, important because Jane Wilkinson hires Carlotta Adams to portray herself at the special dinner party that she uses as an alibi. And spoilers, when she goes off to murder her husband. And,
well, do you want me to play the
oh,
clip?
yes, please.
Because
play
this
that
has
clip.
sound, so we're going to be quiet here as this goes on. But you get an idea.
Oh, I have to be quiet?
If you can control yourself. Well, I mean, you don't, but our audience would like to hear them singing. I'll mute your microphone now. That'll be fine.
I see in the audience one of the most popular and talented American actresses, now married into your English peerage, Lady Edgware. I would like to give you a slight impression of her singing the chorus of one of her most popular numbers.
And maybe if I stop in the middle of it, you could probably tell that's the same actress playing both sides of the playing both characters.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, that is pretty common. It's pretty common. I think Peter Ustinov did that, where Faye Dunaway played both characters. I think. Let me look it up.
Yep. So
let's see. Yep, Carlotta Adams, Faye Wilkinson, and we have to do it the same way here. And then, oh God, I can't remember when David Suchet shot
their version. Well,
there it is. I found it. And no, they used somebody different to play Carlotta Adams in
the 2000 version, with David Suchet.
Yeah, they used somebody different.
Unless, of course, she objects. Why not at all? I'd be delighted. Thank you. Would you play Long Way,
our
please?
audio is a bit low key.
Oh, I'm sure you will.
Okay, well that's.
Oh, our audio is very low, so you have to raise it some.
Okay.
I knew you wouldn't mind.
You don't realize that they are the same actress, and I thought that was very well done. And I did not. This version doesn't work as well as it could. It is 80 minutes long. They have most of the high points in the film, but they missed really important ones. They missed why she has to be a merry widow and not a gay divorcee about the Duke of Merton. That is so subtle, you hardly see anything at all in there. And one of these days, when we get to one of the other Poirots, the other versions of this, I'll probably talk about why, if the Duke of Merton was such a stalwart defender of the faith, why he wasn't already married to a nice Catholic girl and raising a brood of 10 children. But that's something totally different, and who knows. But the other thing that they really did wrong here is you don't see what happened with the Judgment of Paris. So you have the young, I can't think of what his name is. He only gets a few minutes on screen, and he calls Poirot up. He was at the critical dinner party, and he talked to he talked to Jane Wilkinson at the dinner party, and she was so clever, and she was so erudite, and she was so educated, and she was so witty, and she was so this, and she was so that. And then he meets her again, and it's like talking to someone who had a brain transplant. She had her brain removed, and he's talking about the Judgment of Paris, and she's like, "Oh yes, I just love Parisian clothes," and no, and it was just you'll have to read the comment because I'm on a roll. But she just it really damages how Poirot figured it out, because then you get the distinct impression that Poirot solved the crime by pulling it out of his boutonniere vase. Although this one doesn't wear a boutonniere vase, so. But you don't see that oh my god, that this really matters.
Yeah. Now, the Judgment of Paris, I should interrupt, is a painting. It's a very famous painting from mythology, which Paris, who is a man, not a city, is asked by three goddesses to judge who is the most beautiful. So this gave painters an opportunity to paint three partially naked or maybe even naked women, depending on their taste.
And I will go a little further back. It's not just a painting. This, of course, stems from, this is the initial setup behind the Trojan War, because Paris is, Aphrodite offers him the best bribe. All three goddesses bribe him, and Aphrodite offers him Helen, the most beautiful woman in the world, as his wife. And so Paris says, you got it. You're the most beautiful goddess. I'm off to Macedonia to carry Helen off back with me to Troy. And there, that leads on to, of course, the Trojan War and the Odyssey, and then the Aeneid.
Right, which the Odyssey is coming out now from Christopher Nolan. So this is actually
oh my God,
topical.
Are we timely?
We are
topical?
timely,
Oh my God.
amazing. But
Oh my God.
that's what the clue was. It was it's a misheard clue or a misheard phrase or a misunderstood phrase, and that told him there's something wrong here. And he doesn't know what. He doesn't realize that Carlotta is portraying Lady Edgware.
Yeah, because he thought he was talking to this charming, delightful, really well-educated woman, and then suddenly it's like, you know, her brain had been removed. And she was still charming and delightful and beautiful, but her brain had been removed, and she had no idea what he was talking about. And he had to go home and think about it and then say, oh, maybe that wasn't the same woman, as unlikely as that seems. And of course he was right. And then Jane Wilkinson stabs him in the back of the neck with a corn knife. And I want to bring this up too, because again, this is where the passage of time and being on the other side of England, you don't realize what they're talking about. So Agatha talks all throughout here about using a corn knife. And my understanding when I first read this was a corn knife is like this machete, like what you use to cut sugar cane or corn with. And no, a corn knife is this tiny razor blade with a handle, and you use it to do home surgery on your feet to shave off your corns. And is that a corn knife in the top picture, or is
Yes,
that a machete?
Well, it's a machete, but used to cut corn stalks.
Yes, and of course you don't have a scale there, but the top one is like 2 feet long and the bottom one is like 6 inches long.
Yeah.
And that is such an enormous difference. And I remember reading this and thinking, how the heck could she carry a corn knife through the streets of London and not have the taxi driver notice when they're like 2 feet long? But of course, because she wasn't carrying something 2 feet long, she was carrying this itty bitty little knife that, you know, turn your head, dear, so that you're able to go right in there. And something else that they don't tell you in the movie versions is that Jane Wilkinson, the reason why she knew how to use a corn knife,
Yeah, that is why.
is because she had met a doctor in Hollywood, and she had asked about some murder method in one of her movies. I can't remember the exact details, but the doctor said, oh yes, if you take your little knife, your sharp little knife, and you put it right here.
Pencil there?
Yeah, like you put it in right here. You can cut this, you can slip right between the vertebrae and slice the spinal cord, and you can kill that person like within seconds. And this is something supposedly. But, you know, she has a doctor telling her this, and she's an actress, so it's not like she has a medical student. And, you know, she's thinking, wow, I could really, this could really work. And it's obvious that there is planning involved in this murder plot on the behalf of Jane Wilkinson, but you don't see. The 80-minute running time means that there's a whole lot of stuff that you don't see, such as her trading clothes with Carlotta Adams, or the fact that she did trade clothes with Carlotta Adams, and she
It was a complex plot.
It was a complex plot. And when she traded clothes with Carlotta Adams, that's when she drugged Carlotta. Carlotta barely made it home back to her own flat, where she collapsed and went to sleep and then couldn't wake up. And that's also when Jane Wilkinson put the little fancy sleeping powder box into Carlotta Adams's bag. gag.
Yeah, this is
And you
Carlotta
don't realize
dying the next morning. She got the drugs, in the middle of the night, and it took her this long to die. And I'll have to mention, because the only version we could find of this is on YouTube, and it's a version that has, those are editing marks at the top center of the screen. That's a timer that goes off. It's just scrolling all the way up so an editor can tell at what point in the middle of the movie they need to cut something.
And we saw a clip of this. Maybe it was in Torquay. I cannot remember now, but we saw a clip from Lord Edgware Dies, and it was pristine. And maybe it was Mark Aldridge showing it off. And of course, he has contacts at the British Film Institute and the BBC, so he can get the beautiful pristine version that they sit on like smog on top of his hoard, because by God, they don't want peasants like us to possibly see the original film. Damn them. Sorry.
Anyway, back to Lord Edgware Dies. What's interesting about this, now, would you actually recommend this movie? Would you actually recommend that people watch this?
I think as a completist, you should see it.
If
you are a completist, you absolutely should see this, because it is the only portrayal of Poirot by Austin Trevor that you will see. So you will see why Agatha hated seeing Poirot in the movies, because they did such a bad job of it. And they could have swapped those two actors. Richard Cooper could have been Poirot, and Austin Trevor could have been Hastings, and it probably would have worked just fine. Yeah. But this is the only Austin Trevor you will see. And the actress who plays Jane Wilkinson, Jane Carr, is really actually very good. She steals the show every time she comes on. Actresses love playing actresses. And so Jane Carr, as the actress, gets to be flamboyant. She gets to be showy. She gets to be vain. She gets to be single-minded. She gets to be totally a narcissist. She gets to be amoral. She gets to show off her hot bod. She gets to do everything actresses love to do legitimately, because she's portraying an actress. And all through, she really steals the show every single time. She is utterly unconcerned with what's going on around her, because it doesn't matter to her. She knows her plot will work because she's Jane Wilkinson and she is special.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and but the movie still wastes time on things like this. And there was also
the taxi driver scene.
The taxi driver scene, which I'll bring this. I only bring this up just to show you this is what they considered funny, is to have a comic taxi driver.
15.
Everybody will be able
to
this, yes.
Come on now, which was it?
Between 10 and 11.
I see. Well, go on.
Well, they tell me to drive to Regent's Gate. They tell me the house when I got there. They tell me to be quick, too.
It takes you 6 or 7 minutes.
And I'll stop here, but basically a lot of it is I up, because of course he's Cockney, I assume.
I guess.
And he has the big badge on his shirt, which is a London taxi driver medallion. And those are very, very valuable medallions, because he has the knowledge, and that the knowledge is the knowledge. They're tested on it of doing, how well do they know London streets.
So they can navigate from point A to point B in a direct line without going through E through K in between.
Yeah.
And of course, and the other thing that they do in this particular film, Agatha wrote Hastings as a Watson, and sometimes Hastings can be pretty dopey, but he's never this dopey. They have him, the script has him walk into walls. They have him say inappropriate things. They have him basically make a fool of himself, where he's repeating Poirot, repeating what Poirot says, repeating what Poirot says, repeating what Poirot says, and then Poirot turns to him and said, "Will you shut up?"
Well, he's also that was when he was asking questions, and those were legitimate questions of a witness.
But
what time did you get back?
Job.
It's not his job. But on the other hand, Poirot doesn't need to say, "Hastings, shut up," to him twice. That is absolutely rude for a guy who refuses to correct a lady calling him French.
Yes, it was. And it was just... It's an interesting curiosity, and I think, if you are watching everything as a film festival, which is what we're doing now, you'll see what they chose to include and what they didn't compared to version 2 with Peter Ustinov and version 3 with David Suchet, and then Les Petits, which goes off into the wild blue yonder, and we'll get to there in 3 weeks from now. But it's, I don't know. I liked Jane Carr, the actress. I really did. I think she did a fabulous job. But it was stagey. It dragged. There was no incidental music, and you said something about that too.
Yeah, Mark Aldrich had pointed out that at this time in 1934, silent movies had moved to talkies, and over those 5 years, various studios were learning how to do this. And one of the things they had forgotten to do was add incidental music. And in this movie, you can really, really tell, because the dialogue is just so heavy. It's not cut very fast. There are times when the camera is still going and a guy is kind of waiting to walk off the stage. There was the actor playing Brian Martin was just really... He was very stagey. He would say something and pause, like, "What are we going to do, Poirot? Something needs to be done." And you're just going, pacing.
Yes, and Julia,
our commenter,
I would guess that.
Ooh.
I don't even remember Hastings in Appointment with Death, but I remember they abused Peter Ustinov in Appointment with Death. And yes, it was like that. And maybe there was a connection with Peter Ustinov having the door slammed into him in Appointment with Death because somebody had seen Lord Edgware Dies, and Hastings got the door slammed, walked right into the wall.
Yeah.
I don't know, because you don't know what people in Hollywood have seen and what they didn't see. But it does look to me, yeah, they abused Hastings like they abused poor Peter Ustinov in Appointment with Death, and that poor man, his final role as Poirot, and we'll get to that in a couple of months. Yeah, in due time, in a couple of months. But it was just so...
Yeah,
it was irritating.
The
Hastings isn't supposed to be this kind of an idiot.
Yeah, there is, and you don't need to have a character be an idiot like that, because you can see in the Nero Wolfe stories, Archie Goodwin is not an idiot. He's just not a genius.
And he, it was fun. It could be funny, but it doesn't have to be abusive to be funny, because Hastings here did sometimes say funny things, such as, do you believe in heredity? Oh yes, that's how I got my money.
Yep.
And and he gives Jane Carr, the Jane Wilkinson gets the best line in the whole film with the very end. Did you keep that as a clip?
No, I didn't. But it was something like, "Don't leave me hanging," and Jane says, That's a very tactless remark.
Thing.
I mean, she's already been arrested and she's going to go off to face the hangman for multiple
and they
murders.
caught her in the act of trying to stab Poirot with the corn knife, as though that's not going to draw attention to her.
Yeah, this was the case where he tells the story and then she comes out
and
leaps out to try to kill Poirot with Japp.
With Japp and Hastings there in the room, as though she would be able to get away with it. And you're thinking,
she's going to kill all three of them and then run off?
My God. Oh my God.
But this is movie magic. This is how they make movies in Hollywood and London. And it is sometimes it's very dumb.
It really can be. It really, really can be. And the doing the film festival, like I said, we're going to get to see the various versions, and we've got 4 with this one. And the minor characters are where you really start seeing the changes. So Brian Martin, the fellow actor, doesn't actually have that much to do here, other than to say portentous things about Jane Wilkinson is not to be trusted and she's dangerous, but you don't really get any kind of a story with him. And I distinctly remember him at one point having a conversation with Poirot, and he is keeping his eyes fixed on Poirot's chest for no discernible reason, because it's not like Poirot is showing off his manly pecs. It's just weird. It's like I'm focused right on that button there. And it was just weird. It looked wrong.
Yeah. And yeah, you could tell from the title screen they didn't think much of him, because he's just this little guy in the distance. They couldn't even find a close-up of him. And basically his job was to come in and warn Poirot, oh my God, she's capable of murder. She's capable of doing anything.
But you don't get the backstory that's in the novel or that's in the other films.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also the Geraldine Marsh, who is Lord Edgware's daughter,
Mhm.
and she's a piece of work, and she's madly in love with her cousin, Lord Edgware's nephew, Ronald Marsh, who is a dissipated, gambling drunkard, and Lord Edgware thinks that his daughter is going to end badly, and it looks like he is correct if she marries Captain Ronald Marsh, who then becomes Lord Edgware. And this is another.
Although at this point, throughout this, in the horse racing scene, he says, "This is the last time. Here, take my glasses, take my binoculars. I don't need them anymore. I'm not going to do this anymore." So he was actually kind of starting to reform.
Well, I think what the other gentleman that he gave them to says, yeah, this won't last.
So who
I don't
knows?
know, but you've got those characters. Sometimes they get a bigger role. We'll see. Ronald Marsh is going to be, I think, Bill Nighy in
Yep.
the
The Ustinov
Ustinov
version, a young Bill Nighy, if you could imagine that.
I know.
I think he grew. He was like old before his time, like Steve Martin. With
But
the
there
white
was
hair.
but the minor characters, they all play important roles. And another character that we don't see at all, and she plays a fairly important role in the novel, is of course the Duke of Merton's mother, the Dowager Duchess of Merton, and
doesn't
she
show
does
up here.
not want her son to marry that actress.
Although that was a staple of fiction. P.G. Wodehouse talked a lot about wealthy men, wealthy young scions marrying chorus girls. And they did. That's
And sometimes
because
they did. And it brought fresh new blood into the aristocracy, which was getting notably toddy-headed. So it was worth doing.
Yep.
But it's, I don't know.
I would say not if you want to see, if you haven't seen Lord Edgware elsewhere, only if you're interested in that period or just to see what a bad Poirot looks like.
Yeah, or you want to do the film festival with all 4 versions so that you can see the evolution of this particular piece of intellectual property. And of course, this is the very first film Poirot that we have,
Mm-hmm.
because Alibi, which may or may not have been better, and Black Coffee, which may or may not have been better, are
Well, Mark thinks
gone.
not, just because the reception to this was kind of tepid. It didn't really go very well, which is why you don't have another movie following
and
this.
they had plenty to make.
Yeah.
So I would say it's probably not necessarily worth your time unless you want to see Jane Carr.
Right.
And I don't know what else Jane Carr did, but she was a lot of fun. She lit up the screen when she appeared. Everything you expect in a brassy blonde actress who is going to, murder her husband so that she can marry up and marry, a good Catholic man with whom presumably she will have the 10 children that every good Catholic lord and defender of the faith is supposed to produce.
At least an heir and a spare.
Well, yeah.
So, what are we going to see next time? How about we go on to that?
Okay, we are next time going to see the Peter Ustinov version of 13 at Dinner in 1985, and that is Faye Dunaway, and she portrays Jane Wilkinson and Carlotta Adams, so she has a dual role there. And for those of you who are familiar with his Death on the Nile and Evil Under the Sun, which we're going to see later in the sequence because we're watching in the order in which Agatha wrote those books, you may remember that Peter Ustinov, his Evil Under the Sun and Death on the Nile were both 1930s. Well, in Be Prepared to be swung wildly
into the present,
because they filmed in 1985, and they turned it into a contemporary.
It was a TV movie, which is why.
Yeah, they saved the money, but it's a TV movie, so it's set in 1985, and you even get an interview with David Frost, and it is kind of like whiplash to go from 1935 to 1985, even though Poirot is still the best dressed man in the room, but it's startling. And I remember liking it very much, and you get to see David Suchet as Inspector Japp, which is
fun. He didn't like it, but we'll go into that. We'll go into that later.
It worked.
But I thought it worked very well. This is what happens. An actor doesn't like his own performance, but everybody else does. So go figure.
So yeah, go figure. So that's what we're doing next week. Oh! It turns out that the Peter Ustinov Appointment with Death film isn't necessarily that easy to find. So you have
we're talking about 13 at Dinner. Appointment.
13 at Dinner. You said 13 at Dinner was not easy to find. We got ours through the interlibrary loan, and that might be either you go to eBay and buy a copy off of eBay, or you go to the interlibrary loan, or you start with your library, because if you've got a great big library system, they may have it lurking in the stacks. But that's where you're going to have to turn to, is either eBay or the interlibrary loan, in order to get yourself a copy.
I looked and I couldn't find it anywhere. It didn't show up.
But it's very well done, and the Brian Martin character is fun.
Mm-hmm. All right.
So I think that's everything, and thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.
And I'm so sorry I broke your Cerberus statue.
That's all right. Well, after 33 years, it's bound to happen sometime. But I forgive you.
Thank you.
Yes. This is one of the... I know, I was not happy at all. I actually... My God, I can't believe what I said. But I immediately apologized. And it'll glue back together. We have plenty of broken things in our house.
That's right. And we put them back together.
And we put them back together and carry on. So, love you, darling. Okay?
And thanks
thank you
for
so
joining
much.
us. And we'll
Bye-bye.
see you next week.
Right.